My name is Rabbi Daniel Sher. Or Rabbi, or Daniel. Some people call me Sher. Not much of a Dan or Danny. Sher Bear, but that was college. We're not going back to it. Hubby or Pookie, sorry Jen. Abba for my kids. And a few other choice names that Jen will use, but we'll come back to that. All of these names are relative, connective. They're more than just words. They each have a particular meaning. They're used in specific circumstances, reserved for specific people. When my lovely wife and mother of my children refers to me as Daniel Howard, or refers to one of the kids as your son, let's just say the accused party knows exactly how this particular Jewish mother feels about that moment. Similarly, the names that we use for God in our tradition are deeply significant. They help us to connect profoundly to the divine, especially as we wrestle with the understanding of the world around us. This year has been incredibly hard, wearing us down and feeling like 10 years for the Jewish community. These high holy days, they felt necessary to pause, to escape from some of the noise that we are surrounded by the trauma we've experienced. And I have found myself speechless, numb, isolated at times. I've also found myself hugging my children tighter, seeking solace with loved ones and filtering out the noise the best I can. The world has not grasped our situation. Many believe they're speaking up for what's right, but without being part of our small Jewish community and family, they don't understand the impact and the trauma of words they might just cast out. We feel disconnected from the larger world at times. And this moment requires a different support, a different name for God, a different experience for the divine. Everything we do in this service today, everything we do in our sanctuary is relational metaphor. It allows us to connect to something greater. In a difficult year, metaphors will help us to navigate those challenges, and we depend on them differently. However, our trap of trying to rationalize metaphor can lead us to dismiss its beauty. Abraham Joshua Heschel, a modern Jewish thinker, warned against taking religious texts too seriously. In his work, God in Search of Man, he argues that a strict literal interpretation would misunderstand divine revelation. He emphasized avoiding the trap of what he called literal-mindedness in matters of touching the core of faith. He said the surest way to misunderstand revelation is to take it too literally. To forget that is the cardinal sin in thinking about the ultimate issues of literal-mindedness. We must trust our soul and mind to work together. Logic and emotion, they may not agree, but they can complement. And we have a powerful metaphor in our High Holy Day liturgy. Avinu, Malkeinu, our Father, our King. But this prayer doesn't always sit well with people. Many people have a hard time walking into a prayer that asks you to see God as Father or as King. In fact, this morning we replaced Avinu Malkeinu with Makor Chaim, source of life. But let's stop and explore these very metaphors and see why our tradition promotes and gives them to us. God as Avinu, our Father, speaks to the intimacy, the care, the nurturing, a close and personal relationship. God as Malkeinu, our King, brings forth reverence and sovereignty, not about fear or elitism, but about a kingdom that has immense pride for its king, a title that inspires awe, commitment, honor. These two names, they balance one another. The intimate relationship with Father and the empowered relationship with ruler, this duality embraces the closeness to God while honoring God's majesty. These relationships often assume, or at least we assume them, with dominance, a father and a king. But the truth is, those two roles are incredibly vulnerable. They rely heavily on relational endorsement. A father's pride lies deeply and vulnerably in the love of their child. A king is celebrated by a kingdom proud of their shared community. The love of the people validate the king. And we need relationships like that in our lives. Now the rabbis try to understand these metaphors too, to make sense of them. They call upon Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, that quotes, upon King Solomon in the crown that his mother crowned him. I love this. This idea of such depth and assumption in that role, a mother crowning her beloved son, the act of symbolizing support and pride and celebration of her son's accomplishments and the acknowledgement that he has grown. Then, in a piece called Sifra Mechilta de Miluim, don't worry, there's no test, it asks, what's this mother crowning business all about? The rabbis teach it's not about King Solomon, it must be about God. And they say it can't be about the mother who's previously never been mentioned in our text. The rabbis deduce instead that it's the people Israel. We the people Israel, crown God. We are the ultimate Jewish mother. We make God Malkeinu. We accept the loving relationship of God in Avinu. We have a role in acknowledging and elevating God's sovereignty in our actions. The prayer Avinu Malkeinu is about our role in crowning the King, celebrating not just who God is to us, but recognizing what God embodies to our role. Like a mother protecting her child, like the people protecting Shabbat, this is what makes it holy. So you might wonder, what of this lovely antidote is the challenge to our year? What does God need from us to continue love and protection? We emphasize joy, teaching our children joy so that external hatred can't extinguish the flame. If we are like a Jewish mother crowning God, there's only one thing we must do. One thing that all of our beloved mothers do. Kvel. I have a Jewish mother. She kvels about my childhood accolades still today. I live with a Jewish mother. She kvels about our children even when she wants them to go to bed. And as soon as they do, we reflect about how cute they are. I am surrounded by Jewish mothers, surrounded by this endless, powerful source. Kveling. Kveling is more than just pride. It's a bursting of joy. Kveling over God is the essence of our relationship with Judaism. It's how we embrace our identity, celebrate our faith, find meaning in our lives. Many of you over this last year asked me how to cope with these moments. And I said the same thing to many of you. The door is open. Our tradition is open. Come, celebrate, learn, embrace, kvel over the incredible identity and truth at the core of our tradition. The founder of the Hasidut movement, the Baal Shem Tov, emphasized that joy is the centrality of service to God. He believed every joyful act, every mundane act could be a vehicle of holiness. We cannot control the world around us. That is a futile errand. But we can kvel about who we are, about the timelessness of our tradition. And by embracing kveling, we find that very antidote to our hardship. The Baal Shem Tov taught after a millennia of suffering, we do not need any more suffering in Judaism. It's high time we stopped dwelling on the negative and dive into the joy with no hesitation. Sing because it feels good. Tell corny jokes even though they call those dad jokes. Celebrate with delicious foods. Sometimes I find myself listening to Jewish music that I've listened to since I was a child just to pass the time, or sing in the car, or I'll call my parents, but that's just a plug. This whole thing is a plug for calling your parents. What was so amazing about the Baal Shem Tov's perspective was that he pushed back against the surroundings of his tradition. Many people interpret Judaism to dwell on our mistakes as a part of falling trap to that literal mindedness, that we deserve the loss of the temple because we failed the mitzvot, that we deserve the hardships in this life because we stopped having full faith. And the Baal Shem Tov says, no, we will fail if we stop celebrating with joy, if we don't start leaning heavier into this gift of life. This past year trained a lot of us to wake up each morning and see negative. Start from a position of defensiveness and sadness and isolation. We cannot do that. We have to find every possible reason to celebrate with joy. Consider the breathtaking beauty of the sunset as it hits the water on PCH when you're stuck in traffic. Or the crispness in the air when you wake up to get 5 minutes before the pitter-patter starts of tiny feet. Those are manifestations of God's creation. When we pause to appreciate those small wonders, we get the chance to quell over God's accomplishments. These are real relationships. They're metaphors, sure, but they're models and expectations for true relationship. They tell us how to show up and love and allow others to show up and love us. You are loved and you are supported. This is why we lean into our tradition. The schedules, the routines, the prayers, the moment, the language, the food, so that we can feel that love and support. I'll say it again. This past year was painful. Deep breath. It was isolating, distressing, challenging. I can't believe I can use the phrase this past year. It's been going for a year. Kfel over your Judaism. Kfel over your tradition. Kfel over your identity. Stop dwelling in the negative. Let me make it clear. We cannot walk into this year with the darkness we found ourselves surrounded by this past year. We cannot fall trap into the way the hatred of this world wants us to feel. We have to choose to kfel with authenticity. We have to celebrate relentlessly. We have to buy into joy, reframe our orientation, live life while basking in our kfelling truth. Pride isn't even meant to just live inside. It's something we express and share. So what does it mean to show pride and crown God? It means to wear our identity. Each week, I get the blessing to teach nearly 40 high school students. And this year, I looked around and I saw Jewish star necklaces and high necklaces and embracing their heritage without any hesitation. And I'm not talking little, I'm like big old Jewish star necklaces and giant highs the size of their entire torso. Okay, maybe not quite that. But a year ago, this wasn't the case. These students chose to kfel. Chose to take all of the challenge this year pointed at them, and they dove in deeper. They wore their pride more. It's time that we kfel. Participate in Shabbat dinners, invite neighbors and friends. Share in our rituals and beauty, speak up for justice and compassion and the values that define us. When we show our pride, we inspire those around us to do it too. In many ways, I see God, that character of God, that Avinu, that Malkeinu, as a reflection for our tradition. You don't have to see God the way I do, but embracing the obligation of relationship to our neighbors, to our friends, to our children, that is essential. Kfelling over God is embracing and celebrating all of these holy relationships. Kfelling over God is kfelling over our people, our Judaism. You do not need to see God as Father or as King, but that doesn't mean our divine spirit, the spirit of our people, doesn't need you on the other side of that relationship. When you model for your kids the joy of Shabbat, when you volunteer at school to talk about Jewish holidays, when you speak up for your Judaism, when you go home and put up an even bigger mezuzah on the door, you are crowning God. You embrace the relational aspect of our faith. So I encourage each of you, participate actively in this dynamic relationship. Let yourself kvel over the beauty of God's presence. The small miracles, the acts of kindness, the moments of awe. Ask yourself, what can you do to lean into this community, to add your voice to this tradition, to step forward knowing you are not alone? Let us embrace our role in crowning God, kvelling like the incredible Jewish mothers, not just through words, but through actions that reflect godliness in this world. May we discover the profound power of both loving and being loved divinely. Let this perspective inspire us to live fully and authentically, to engage deeply in our faith, and to spread joy and kindness all around us. May we leave here today with our hearts uplifted, our spirits renewed, and a commitment to embrace the metaphor that brings our faith to life. Now, let's sing that traditional melody of Avinu Malkeinu. Let us connect our voices together. How does it resonate this time? How does it resonate? How do these traditional words, with this renewed sense of purpose, where do you stand tall in knowing this relationship to God is one that is divine, not just because of God, but because of the heart that you put back in? Remember, all of the tools we need are here, at our disposal, in our tradition, in our community. Lean in, kvel hard. We sing together. Avinu Malkeinu.